Today we're going to teach you how to make some new wire components with two of our favorite tools, the small and large wrap and taps.
We're going to be using pre-cut lengths of wire in either 2-inch, 3-inch, or 4-inch increments. So we're going to use our ruler to mark where we want to cut. This will be a 3-inch piece. Okay. Notice that the flush side of the cutter was against the part she cut so that the cut will be nice and straight. You want to have a flush cut on both ends of your wire, so if it's pointed on the tip, you're going to want to get the flush cutters and trim off the pointy end. Notice how Michelle puts her pointer finger over the cutter so that that piece doesn't fly. It's a very good protective gesture. Please do it. Okay. And for a lot of the shapes that we're going to be doing in today's video, we're going to be marking the halfway point on the wire before doing any shaping. And you can use a Sharpie marker to do that. So halfway of 3 inches is 1.5 inches. So we're going to put a little mark at 1.5 inches on the wire. For all of the pieces we'll be making in this video, we'll be using soft wire because it's easier to shape. We'll need to harden the wire for the pieces to keep their shapes, and we'll cover this a little later in the video. So the first shape that we're going to cover today is our basic horseshoe. And we're going to start with 3 inches of wire, of which I marked the halfway point, just so it'll be a little bit easier to get a nice, evenly centered shape. You're going to want to grab and make about a 3mm inner diameter loop on each end of the wire. So you're going to grab it with the round nose plier and roll away from you. And we're going to repeat that step until we have a little P on the end of our wire. Flip the wire over, and we're going to do the same thing on the other end. Okay. I'm bracing the wire against my left thumb as I roll away from it. Okay. So notice the two loops are heading towards each other on the same side of the wire. So now we're going to curve our straight piece of wire into the horseshoe shape, and we're going to use our large wrap and tap, and we're going to shape it on the medium step. Okay. So what I like to do is I'll grab the center of the wire like that, and I'll push both legs kind of away from me. Notice that you keep the plastic jaw towards your body. It's very important. Okay. Then you can use the wrap and tap to kind of refine your shape, pretty much just by squeezing it. Like this. Okay. And just adjust until you're happy with the shape. With this 3-inch 16 gauge piece of wire, I shaped my round horseshoe on the middle step of our large wrap and tap. Now I'm going to make a horseshoe on the large step of the smaller of our two wrap and taps we'll be using today. Okay, so I'm going to pinch the middle of the wire, again where I marked it with a Sharpie pen, and with the two loops sort of curling towards me, I'm going to push the wire away around the jaw of the plier. That's, and then you can adjust the shape after. So you can get a teardrop shape like this. Okay, good. So you can compare the two. These are done with same length of wire, same gauge, just this one is shaped with that plier and this one is shaped with that plier. Okay, awesome. Yay. Now we're going to do a variation on our horseshoe, and we're going to do a little petal shape like this. We're going to start with 4 inches of 16 gauge wire, and I'm going to mark the very middle of the wire. So at 2 inches, I'm going to put a little mark with my Sharpie pen. And we're going to start this shape the same way we did the horseshoe. I'm going to grab the tip of the wire and roll away from you in about 3 steps. This to make a peep, flip the wire over and do the same thing on the other end of the wire. Okay. It's really important that both loops are sort of curling in towards the center of the wire on the same half. You don't want one going this way and the other going that way. Okay, then we're going to flip the wire so that the loops sort of curl towards me. Okay, and I'm going to put it in my wrap and tap like this and push the 2 ends of the wire away from me like this. Okay, and this is just to start the curve of our horseshoe. We're going to refine the shape later. Okay, and to do the little point at the tip of our petal, we're going to get our flat nose plier and we're going to grab the wire so that the left edge of the jaw of the plier is touching the dot. Okay, grab the wire and push it against our thumb to make a little angle right at the point. Okay, like this. I like to turn it over and do the same thing for the other half. Like this. Always apply counter pressure with your left thumb. Yeah, for leverage. And now we're going to refine the shape of our piece. I like to use the flat nose plier and sort of work your way up by squeezing along the curve. So you straighten this section here. We're going to straighten the section here close to the point of the petal. Like that. Okay. Just kind of squeeze up and down along the sides of the wire, not the top of the wire like this. Okay. And we can also straighten near the top of our horseshoe by squeezing the flat nose pliers. Like this. Okay. And you'll want to keep refining your shape until you're happy with it. Okay. And if a section got a little bit too straight for your taste, you can always get your wrap and tap and put it back in your piece and give it a little bit of a curve. Like this. And a lot of the work with the wrap and tap is just kind of squeezing it. Squeezing the wire like this, not so much manipulating the plier. If one of the loops is a lot higher than the other side, one way you can fix it is to trim and re-roll this loop. Okay. So first we're going to trim. And this one takes a little bit of eyeballing. We're going to just estimate how much we need to trim and trim off a little bit of the wire. like this. So you see my loop is not complete anymore. Okay, and then we're going to get our round nose plier. And just re-roll it. Like that.
Yay!
The next shape we're going to cover is our leaf link here. To start our leaf, we're going to be using 3 inches of 16 gauge wire. And the first thing we're going to do is turn a loop at one end of the wire with our round nose pliers. So, then we're going to use our larger wrap and tap and start the curve of our leaf on the middle step of the tool, just by pulling the wire around the jaw of the plier. Now we're going to make a hook to close our leaf using our flat nose pliers. I'm going to line up the tip of the wire with the edge of the flat nose plier, and I'm going to bend a right angle away from me that is perpendicular to the loop at the beginning of the wire. It needs to be perpendicular because I'm going to push that hook through the loop at the beginning of the wire, like this, to close it. To bend the hook closed, we're going to flip the leaf over so the hook points towards us. And with the chain nose plier, I'm going to grab the tip of the hook and pull it over and around the loop at the beginning of the wire, like this. Okay. And once it's most of the way closed, you can use a chain nose plier to kind of squeeze it nice and shut. And we're going to brace the shape against our left thumb, and we're going to bend our angle into the tip of the leaf like this. Okay. And we can refine the point by flipping the leaf over and doing the same thing, the other side of the point. Okay. If you want to put a little curve at the tip of the leaf, we're going to use our chain nose plier, and with it near the tip of the leaf like this, we're going to give it a little twist. Like that. I'm going to make my point a little pointier by squeezing it with the flat nose pliers. For a little curve in the tip. There you go. Now we're going to make a heart with our wire. And we're going to start with 4 inches of 16 gauge wire. And I'm going to mark the middle of my wire with my Sharpie. First thing we're going to do to make our heart is we're going to turn a loop on one end of the wire with our round nose pliers. Okay. Grab the tip of the wire, and in about 3 movements, we're going to roll a loop away from me like this. Okay. It's really important that this loop be big enough to fit at least one length of 16 gauge wire through it. So after we made our loop, we're going to start the curve of our heart with our larger wrap and tap. We're going to just bend the wire around the largest step, like this. Okay. And we're just starting a curve, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. Now we're going to put the dent in the top of our heart using our chain nose plier. Note that we're using the chain nose plier instead of a flat because I'm going to want curves right next to the dent, and I don't want a really long straight section of wire. So we are using the chain nose pliers. Okay. So with the dot that marks the middle of the wire touching the left edge of my chain nose plier, I'm going to put my finger on the inside of the curve like this, and I'm going to brace my finger against the wire and bend backwards like this. Okay, so this is how we make our dent in the wire, as opposed to making a point in the wire like this. Now we're going to shape the puffs on our 4-inch heart using the small step of the large wrap and tap, and just kind of shape the wire around it like so. I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing for the other side. Okay, like this. Okay, so this is the start of our heart. We're going to refine the shape now with our pliers. Again, you can deepen the little dent on your heart against your chain nose plier, like that. Okay, and once it's kind of the shape that you like, we're going to make a hook on this end of our wire so that our heart will be closed. Okay, so line up the tip of the wire with the edge of the plier. We're using a flat nose plier right now, and I'm going to bend a hook that is perpendicular to the loop at the beginning of the loop. Okay, I'm going to hook the wire into the loop like so, flip the heart over, and use our chain nose plier to pull the hook over and around the wire of the loop, like this. And once it's almost all the way closed, you can use your chain nose plier to give it a little squeeze to close the loop completely. Okay, so now we have the general shape of our heart, and we can use our pliers and our wrap and taps to refine the shape further. So now we're going to make a heart with a 3-inch piece of 16 gauge wire. So again, my wire is marked in the middle with a Sharpie pen, and I'm going to start by making a loop on one end of the wire with a round nose plier, like that. Okay. Next, I'm going to curve the wire on the large step of our large wrap and tap, just to start the curve of the heart. Like that. I'm going to put a dent in the middle of our heart with our chain nose pliers. And again, the left edge of the plier should be touching the mark in the middle of the wire. So I'm going to put my index finger in the curve like so, and I'm going to brace it as I roll the pliers back towards me, like this. Okay. Next, I'm going to shape the puffs on the heart using the large step on our smaller wrap and tap. So you just pinch the wire in the jaw of the plier and mold the wire around like so. Okay. And I like to flip the wire over and do the same thing for the other puff. Like that. Okay. And I'm going to flip the wire over like this, and using my flat nose plier, I'm going to line up the tip of the wire with the edge of the plier and bend at a 90-degree angle our hook so we can close the heart up. Okay, it should look like this. Then I'm going to hook the wire into the loop at the beginning of the heart, flip the heart over, and with my chain nose plier, I'm going to pull the hook over and around the loop like this. Give it a little squeeze so my loop is closed. Now we can use our pliers to refine the shape of our heart. If I wanted to make the dip a little bit deeper, just use a chain nose plier. Like that. And you can use a flat nose plier to straighten the sides of the heart if you think that they are too round, like this. And notice that we're just kind of squeezing the sides of the wire. We're never really pinching the top and bottom of our shape. And there you go. So now I'm going to show you how to link two hearts together. And I'm going to start with a 2-inch piece of 18 gauge wire. And again, we're going to start our heart by rolling a loop on one end of the wire with our round nose plier. My loop can be a little bit smaller this time because we're using a thinner wire. Okay. Turn my wire around. And I'm going to start my curve, and I'm going to start it on the small step of the large wrap and tap. Just kind of mold my wire into a curve. I'm going to put a dent in the middle of our heart with our chain nose plier. And I'm going to use the small round on the small wrap and tap to shape the puffs of my heart. Okay, so far everything's been the same. And again, I'm going to put a hook at the end of my wire, lining up the tip of the wire with the edge of my flat nose pliers. I'm going to bend a 90-degree angle at the tip of the wire. And at this point, this is when you're going to want to join your two components together if you want to link two hearts, because we're going to put our second heart on, and then we're going to hook our heart shut. Okay, use your chain nose pliers to pull the hook over and around the wire of the loop, and then we can just sort of pinch that shut with the chain nose pliers. Like that. Okay, and then now we can use our pliers and wrap and taps to refine the shape of our heart if you want to. So like that. I'm just going to make that a little bit more round. Mostly by pinching the wire around the jaw of the wrap and tap. So now we're going to start hammering our pieces, and what this does is it hardens it. You want to harden all of your soft wire components because otherwise it will fall apart, pull out of shape, or just come undone. So the hammering will be done with a metal hammer on a steel bench block. So Michelle, you can start hitting away. Notice that she keeps the hammer level, coming up and down so that it hits straight down and flat. If you angle your hammer, you'll get dents in your wire and your bench block. You can also use the ball side of the hammer for texturing.
This gives it a rough, organic look to your piece. When you have two pieces linked together, you want to avoid hitting it where they are joined. So to do that, you'll put one piece on the bench block and let the other piece hang over the edge. And do not hit where they overlap. Notice that the piece is getting larger as you hit it, and it may start to open. So you may have to pinch it closed with your fingers, and you can continue hammering.
Before starting any project, you will want to straighten your wire with a nylon jaw plier Before starting any project with your wire, you'll want to straighten it with the nylon jaw pliers. Two-inch, 3-inch, or 4-inch increments. Okay.
Oops, I didn't have that part in the video.
Okay. 2-inch. And we're going to use 3 inches of wire that is 16 gauge in diameter. We're going to use 3 inches of wire that's 16 gauge. We're going to use 3 inches of 16 gauge wire to make this leaf here. I can use my chain nose plier to give it a little bit of a squeeze. Oops. To get it. Okay.
We're doing this so that the bottom curve gets enhanced, and as the curve gets, hold on,
Yes.
you don't need that part, just keep going.